Welcome to our channel. This touching image from 1939 shows nurses carefully pushing young children in wheelchairs into the sunlight. At the time, sunlight therapy, often called heliotherapy, was thought to be vital for recovery from conditions like tuberculosis and rickets. These nurses weren't just offering care, they were providing what was then considered cutting-edge medicine. Here's a determined 8th grade girl working long hours in the tobacco fields of Granville County, North Carolina, back in 1939. Balancing schoolwork with farming responsibilities wasn't unusual in rural America during the Great Depression. She's earning her own wages, helping her family survive, and proving just how strong young women had to be in those times. A stern-looking German policeman, captured in 1926, stands in uniform on a cobbled street. Post-WWI Germany was marked by economic instability and political tension. Uniformed figures like him were often seen as symbols of order amid the chaos of the Weimar Republic's uncertain years. Satchel Paige wasn't just a baseball player, he was a legend. This photo is from 1965, when at age 59, he pitched 3 scoreless innings for the Kansas City Athletics. The team even provided him with a recliner and a personal nurse in the bullpen. With decades of experience behind him, Paige became a living bridge between the Negro Leagues and Major League Baseball. This photo, taken in 1860, shows George Armstrong Custer before his rise to infamy. Still a young officer, Custer's confidence shines through. He'd later become one of the most controversial figures in US military history, known for his bold and often reckless tactics. Here's Charlie Chaplin around 1919, in his signature hat and bow tie. At this point in his career, Chaplin was transitioning from silent shorts to full-length films. His character, the Tramp, had already become a global icon, bringing humor to a world still recovering from war. Downtown Shanghai in 1930 was a stunning mix of colonial architecture and Chinese heritage. This bustling cityscape shows modern trams, towering banks, and busy pedestrians. Known as the Paris of the East, Shanghai was then a hub of international trade and cultural fusion. Check this out. The very first international tennis match held at Wimbledon, all the way back in 1883, with players in white flannel and wooden rackets. This game marked the beginning of what would become a global tradition. The grassy courts and genteel audience reflect a very different era in sports. Captured in 1945, this photo shows young children learning ballroom dance. Many of them had lived through the trauma of World War II, and classes like this helped bring a sense of normalcy back into their lives. The polished floors and formal dress reveal a society eager to rebuild. This unsettling image from 1937 shows 9-year-old Eunice Winstead beside her 22-year-old husband Charlie Johns. Taken in Tennessee, their marriage sparked national outrage and led to widespread discussions about the lack of legal protection for children in certain states. Before and after shots of Hiroshima show the sheer scale of devastation caused by the atomic bomb in 1945. Entire city blocks were reduced to ash. The photo serves as a haunting reminder of the destructive power of nuclear weapons and the human cost of war. This fascinating glimpse shows Disneyland in the early days of construction. Taken in the 1950s, the land is bare, workers wear hard hats, and scaffolding surrounds what would later become Sleeping Beauty Castle. It's hard to believe this quiet scene would one day become the happiest place on Earth. Here we see Captain Walter Waddy Young and his B-29 bomber crew posing proudly in front of their aircraft in 1944. Their plane is painted with humorous caricatures of the crew, a tradition meant to boost morale. Sadly, many of these brave airmen never returned from their missions in World War II. This sweet photo from 1937 shows a child playfully smushing their face in amusement. The innocence captured here is striking, especially when you consider the global turmoil building in that decade. In 1913, London's Child Welfare Office on Alray Street helped track the health and safety of working-class children. This photo shows the growing focus on public health reforms during the Edwardian era, a time when child mortality rates were still high. The Messenger Boys strike was a pivotal labor moment. This image captures a group of teenage delivery boys in protest, demanding fair wages and better working conditions. It's a powerful reminder that child labor wasn't just a problem, it was a battleground. Believe it or not, Norway didn't receive its first shipment of bananas until 1905. This photo shows citizens curiously inspecting the exotic fruit. Many had never seen or tasted one before. Bananas quickly became a symbol of global trade and luxury in Scandinavia. Blackpool, England, 1958. This dramatic photo captures cars submerged under several feet of floodwater following a massive thunderstorm. You can even see people wading through the flooded streets under a railway bridge. The infrastructure simply couldn't cope with the deluge. Here's Times Square in 1945, packed with people celebrating the end of World War II. Flags wave, confetti rains, and joy is written across every face. It was one of the most emotional public gatherings in US history, a true moment of national relief. This elegant photo of the Lincoln Memorial reminds us of its powerful symbolism. Completed in 1922, the structure was inspired by Greek temples, housing a massive statue of Abraham Lincoln. Over the decades, it has become a backdrop for some of America's most historic speeches, including Martin Luther King Jr.'s "I Have a Dream." This vintage scene from around 1910 captures a milk delivery in Studio City, California, with the milk cart being pulled not by a horse, but by a team of trained dogs. Back when automobiles were still rare and roads were rugged, dog-drawn carts like this were an efficient way to serve growing neighborhoods. Anna Coleman Ladd wasn't just a sculptor, she was a pioneer of compassion. During World War I, she used her artistic talents to create lifelike prosthetic masks for soldiers who had suffered severe facial injuries. Her work helped men regain confidence and re-enter society with dignity after the horrors of trench warfare. In this early 1900s image, strongman George Hackenschmidt, often called the Russian Lion, poses in peak form. Known for inventing the bench press, Hackenschmidt wasn't just a champion wrestler, but also a fitness philosopher whose influence on bodybuilding endures to this day. This heartwarming photo from 1951 shows a young Inuit girl named Terzi standing beside a snowman carved entirely out of ice by her father. Taken in Ikugaktuk, also known as Pele Bay, it's a tender moment that reflects both the artistry and the deep family ties of Inuit culture. What you're looking at might be the earliest form of GPS. This device, dating back to 1930, used scrollable maps that advanced as the car moved, giving drivers a primitive but surprisingly effective way to navigate long road trips before electronic systems existed. In this 1946 photo, a group of teenage girls are being sent home from McKinley High School in Chicago for wearing pants, specifically slacks and blue jeans. Back then, dress codes were strict, and girls defying them were quietly starting a fashion rebellion that would eventually reshape American norms. Charles Lindbergh's 1927 solo flight across the Atlantic changed aviation forever. This photo, taken shortly after his arrival in Paris, shows the spirit of St. Louis surrounded by a jubilant crowd. The journey took over 33 hours alone with no radio, a feat of courage and endurance still revered today. A quiet moment of compassion is captured in this 1968 photo from Scotland. A young boy is seen comforting his friend, his arm wrapped protectively around him. No words are needed. It's a timeless image of empathy between children in a world that can often be unkind. From the 1920s comes this stylized photo inspired by the myth of Leda and the Swan. It's likely a theatrical interpretation, combining Greek mythology with early 20th century artistic experimentation. The result is strange, beautiful, and thought-provoking, just like the myth itself. These window cleaners from the 1920s are dressed in full suits and ties, balancing on narrow ledges while they work. It's a humorous but striking example of how formal dress codes once extended into the most dangerous professions and how far safety standards have come since. This haunting image from 1900 captures the devastation left behind by the Great Galveston Hurricane, the deadliest natural disaster in US history. Thousands of lives were lost, entire neighborhoods flattened, the storm reshaped Texas forever, and the trauma lived on for generations. Children sit on piles of rubble in this 1940 photo taken in London during the Blitz. Nazi air raids had reduced entire neighborhoods to ruins. Despite the destruction, these children seem calm, a haunting portrait of resilience in a war-torn city. On the Windrock Navajo Reservation in the 1930s, a baby lies peacefully in a traditional cradleboard. These hand-carved carriers were essential to Navajo life, keeping infants safe while mothers worked. More than a tool, the cradleboard was a symbol of love, protection, and tradition. This striking image from 1923 shows a Berlin banker carefully counting stacks of near-worthless currency during Germany's infamous hyperinflation crisis. At the time, money lost value so quickly that families would burn bills for warmth or barter instead of buying bread. Here's an unusual wartime photo: soldiers wearing gas masks while peeling onions. Taken in Tobruk in 1941, it's a clever way to avoid tears during a routine chore. Even in war zones, soldiers found ways to solve everyday problems with humor and ingenuity. This daring motorist from 1914 parked his early automobile right at the edge of the Grand Canyon. Back then, there were no barriers or guardrails, just raw cliffs and courage. Driving was a true adventure, and breakdowns in places like this could turn dangerous fast. This dignified elderly woman is Laura Hawkins Fraser, photographed in 1924 at the age of 87. She was the real-life inspiration for Becky Thatcher in Mark Twain's classic novels. Twain had based many of his characters on childhood friends from Hannibal, Missouri, and she remained one of his most enduring muses. This photo from Paris in the early 1950s shows a street lamp being lit by hand, a fading tradition as electric lighting took over. For centuries, lamp-lighters were part of every city's rhythm. Their nightly walks symbolized safety, warmth, and the slow transition into evening. Here, we see an early firefighter in 1853 demonstrating how he would climb a ladder during a rescue. His uniform looks more like a suit than safety gear, but at the time, bravery was the only real protection. These early firemen paved the way for the rescue systems we rely on today. This intense photo from 1918 shows New Zealand troops crouched in a trench at Gomecourt Wood, France, during the final year of World War I. Alongside them is their tank, playfully named Jumping Jenny. You can see the exhaustion etched into their faces, men caught between duty and survival in a brutal war. Here's a youthful Marilyn Monroe in 1947, still known as Norma Jean, posing for a pin-up photo shoot by the famed artist Earl Moran. She hadn't yet become the Hollywood legend we know, but her charm and natural charisma are already shining through the camera lens. A child swings joyfully near a towering factory in Leeds, England in 1955. Smoke billows in the background, but the moment is full of innocence and play. It's a powerful contrast, childhood flourishing in the shadow of post-war industry. New Year's Eve in 1930, inside Hector's Devonshire restaurant in London, a bartender mixes drinks for a crowd eager to leave the Great Depression behind, if only for one night. The clink of glasses and laughter echo through the room, a snapshot of hope in uncertain times. In this theatrical photo from 1924, a massive game of human chess is underway in St. Petersburg, Russia. Each player stands dressed as a chess piece. These elaborate performances were a blend of sport, art, and entertainment, a tradition that captivated audiences across Europe. This breathtaking image shows a woman and her horse leaping over a convertible car at a California rodeo in 1934. Stunts like these were more than entertainment. They were raw expressions of courage, strength, and the daring spirit of the American West. Shot from the 27th floor in 1931, this photo looks south across New York City from River House on East 52nd Street. Skyscrapers, docks, and smokestacks fill the horizon. The city was growing fast, bustling, and beautiful, even as the country fell into economic crisis. This haunting image from 1953 shows a row of iron lungs in a California hospital, used to help polio patients breathe. Most of them were children. At the time, there was no vaccine, and hospitals had to turn entire wards into mechanical lifelines. From 1915 Beijing, this photo shows a cake made from millet and jujubes, a traditional offering often prepared during festivals. It's more than just food, it represents prosperity, health, and family togetherness in northern Chinese culture. The Eiffel Tower, standing tall in 1944, captured during the liberation of Paris. After 4 years of Nazi occupation, the city finally exhaled. The image of the tower draped in French flags became a symbol of resistance, pride, and freedom reclaimed. This delicate doll dates back to 17th century Germany, likely owned by the daughter of a noble family, crafted by hand with painted porcelain features and stitched garments. It's a small piece of history that reminds us how children once dreamed and played. During World War II, British soldiers stationed in Burma took rare showers using mobile bath units. These makeshift bathing stations offered brief moments of comfort and normalcy amid dense jungle heat and the dangers of battle. A forest of towering totem poles stands in this 1878 photo from Skydgate, British Columbia. Carved by the Haida people, each pole tells a story of ancestors, animals, and spirits. These works of art were passed down through generations, both sacred and social in meaning. Believe it or not, this cart was pulled by an ostrich, taken in 1920 at the ostrich farm in South Pasadena, California. The photo captures a time when exotic animals were used for quirky rides and tourist attractions in early roadside America. A curious cat is caught in action in this 1909 photo, standing behind a camera, almost as if it's about to take a picture itself. Staged or not, it's a humorous reminder that humans have been amused by animals for as long as cameras have existed. This disturbing image from January 1946 shows a child being initiated into the Ku Klux Klan in Montezuma, Georgia. The hooded figures loom in the background. It's a chilling reminder of how hate and indoctrination can be passed through generations, often starting far too young. Here's a rare campaign moment from 1960, John F. Kennedy riding a mule through the stockyards in Sioux City, Iowa. He was connecting with rural voters in the heartland. With charm and strategy, he made history months later as the youngest president ever elected. In a snowy corner of Gary, Indiana, sometime in the 1930s or 40s, a young mother plays outside with her children. They're bundled up, tossing snow in the air. Despite hard times, the joy on their faces is genuine. A simple, beautiful slice of family life. This 1948 photo captures a boy's first time seeing a television screen. His eyes are wide with wonder, mouth slightly open. It's hard to imagine now, but at the time, television was pure magic. A window into another world right in your living room. On June 24, 1945, Soviet soldiers marched through Moscow in a grand parade, carrying the lowered flags of the defeated Nazi regime. The war was over. The victory was not just military, it was symbolic. The image captured pride, pain, and power all at once. This is Keith Sapsford, a 14-year-old Australian boy who tragically lost his life in 1970 after attempting to stow away on a plane. A photographer unintentionally captured the exact moment he fell from the aircraft's wheel well shortly after takeoff. He was chasing a dream of adventure, one that cost him everything. Here's a surprising escape caught on camera in 1940, a cat darting out of a cage at the Animal Rescue League in Boston. Its body is mid-leap, frozen in time. This quirky moment quickly became one of the most shared animal photos of the era. Now take a look at this. In 1901, Mrs. A.W. Barrett caught a black sea bass that weighed 416 pounds and measured nearly 8 feet long. It happened off the coast of Santa Catalina Island in California. It was one of the biggest fish ever caught by a woman at the time, and with basic gear no less. Fast forward to 1950 at the Indianapolis Speedway. This fun photo captures a group of kids tearing around the track in their 1-horsepower soapbox racers. They weren't breaking any speed records, just pushing 20 mph, but they were living their racing dreams. Here's Madame Asta Suina, an elegant European woman, pictured with her beloved dog as they both listened to the radio. Radios were still luxury items in the early 20th century, and families would often gather around them for news, music, and mystery programs. This snapshot from 1940 shows Mrs. Bill Stagg in Pie Town, New Mexico, drawing water from a well located inside her porch. At the time, indoor plumbing was rare in rural America. Wells like this were essential for cooking, washing, and everyday survival. In this dramatic photo from early 1965, a US Army helicopter pilot scrambles away from his wrecked aircraft after being shot down in Vietnam. Smoke rises in the background. You can feel the urgency. It's a moment suspended between survival and chaos. This incredible photo from 1899 shows one of the first women's basketball teams. They're dressed in full-length skirts and laced boots, a stark contrast to today's uniforms. Despite the attire, these women were breaking barriers in a sport just beginning to find its place. Taken in 1962, this photo shows NHL players from the Toronto Maple Leafs and Chicago Blackhawks gathered on the ice. What's the reason for the huddle? They were all helping search for a contact lens lost by player Jack Evans. Even rivals paused to help. The sinking of the Andrea Doria in 1956 was one of the most shocking maritime disasters of the 20th century. This photo captures the luxury ocean liner tilting helplessly after colliding with the MS Stockholm. Over 40 people died, and it marked the end of an era for transatlantic cruises. This image from 1948 shows David Hensley, a young boy suffering from polio, wearing heavy metal leg braces. He's part of a fundraising drive to support a new polio hospital. His hopeful eyes tell a story of pain, courage, and determination. Here's an early food truck, a 1919 photo showing a portable kitchen serving meals right off the back of a car. These trucks catered to factory workers and soldiers returning home from World War I. Mobile dining was just beginning. This guy takes manliness to the next level, shaving with a straight razor in the 1940s, chest out, towel around his neck. Barbershops were a cultural hotspot back then, places to socialize and swap stories while getting cleaned up. This proud moment features Nora Washington on the banks of the Colorado River in Bastrop, Texas. In the 1950s, she caught a massive catfish using nothing but a cane pole. Her beaming smile says it all, a blend of pride, patience, and a good dose of luck. This eerie photo from 1902 shows a group of coal miners at the end of a shift. Their faces are dark with soot, and their eyes stare blankly at the camera. Child miners stand among them, a grim reminder of the exploitation that once fueled the industrial age. A quiet moment from the 1930s, a father and daughter sit on the porch of their Appalachian home. He's whittling wood, she's playing with a stick. These were simple times, but full of quiet beauty. Life was hard, but moments like these were cherished. A rare image from 1929 shows African American women posing in front of their own beauty salon in Chicago. In an age of segregation, owning and running a successful business was a bold act of empowerment. Here's a moving photo from World War II, a nurse tending to a wounded soldier in a battlefield tent. Despite the chaos of war, her gentle care shines through. These women were often the difference between life and death on the front lines. Taken in 1938, this snapshot shows a crowd gathered outside a radio store, all staring through the glass. Why? The store was broadcasting a speech by President Franklin D. Roosevelt. Radios were still rare in many homes, so public listening events like this brought people together. This image from 1935 shows Dust Bowl refugees packing their belongings onto a truck, heading west in search of better lives. The Great Depression had hit hard, but the ecological disaster of dust storms across the Midwest made survival nearly impossible. These families became symbols of American endurance. Taken in 1941, this photo captures a group of women building fighter planes in a US factory. World War II created massive labor shortages, and women stepped into roles traditionally held by men. These women weren't just working, they were shaping the future of gender equality. This breathtaking photo shows Niagara Falls completely frozen in 1911. Sheets of ice hang like curtains over the massive drop. Locals even ventured out onto the ice, though dangerously thin. It's a rare natural spectacle you're unlikely to see in modern times due to climate change. Captured in 1922, this photo shows British explorer Howard Carter peering into King Tutankhamun's tomb for the very first time. The artifacts inside had remained untouched for over 3,000 years. That moment sparked a worldwide obsession with ancient Egypt. This photo from 1939 features a boy outside a Berlin cinema watching Nazi propaganda clips being projected onto the wall. It's a chilling reminder of how regimes use media to influence even the youngest minds. In 1953, London's streets were flooded with tears and black umbrellas as crowds lined up to mourn Queen Mary. As the grandmother of Queen Elizabeth II, she symbolized the final link to the Victorian era. This image captures a nation in grief. This rare image from 1885 shows the construction of the Statue of Liberty in Paris before it was shipped to the US. You can see workers beside the giant torch. The statue was a gift from France, meant to celebrate freedom and democracy. In 1946, children in post-war Japan gathered around the first television they'd ever seen. Their expressions are a mix of wonder and confusion. Just a year after the atomic bombings, technology was beginning to change their world again. Here's a powerful photo of civil rights leaders marching in Selma, Alabama in 1965. With arms linked and heads high, they were demanding the right to vote. The courage in their faces speaks louder than any speech ever could. This snapshot shows an American family enjoying a roadside picnic next to their car. Long before fast food restaurants lined highways, people packed their meals and stopped wherever there was shade. It's a scene from a slower, simpler kind of road trip. This heartwarming moment from 1942 shows a soldier returning home and lifting his young daughter into the air. Her shoes are worn, his uniform wrinkled, but the joy in their faces is timeless. For many families, reunion was the happiest ending to war. Captured in 1915, this photo shows a group of Native American children being forced to pose outside a US boarding school. Their traditional clothing had been taken away, part of a larger effort to erase indigenous cultures. Their silent stares say everything. This image shows a woman standing proudly in front of her brand new Model T Ford. For many families, this was the first car they ever owned. The Model T didn't just change transportation, it revolutionized freedom and opportunity. In 1941, this photo shows US Navy sailors playing baseball on the deck of an aircraft carrier. Even in wartime, games like this helped boost morale and keep soldiers mentally strong. It's a quiet reminder of how important small joys are during chaos. This incredible moment shows Martin Luther King Jr. at the Lincoln Memorial in 1963, minutes before delivering his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. Surrounded by supporters, the calm before the storm is almost as powerful as the speech itself. Finally, here's a vibrant shot from 1955, a group of children playing hopscotch in a Bronx alleyway. Despite the peeling walls and cracked pavement, their laughter filled the streets. In every era, kids find ways to create joy, even with so little.